Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. It's been a minute since I posted a video. I haven't really been getting out too much as of late. I just went on a little walk at the park and found some new cool little spots. There's not really too many good places around here that are really isolated and good for meditation, but it was nice to get out and just do some exploring. I did take a little short video of one of the spots I found, so I may or may not post that later, I'm not sure. But I wanted to cover at least, one topic. There's a couple of new videos I've thought about doing. I wanted to do a video specifically on why I stopped doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. I'll probably dedicate a whole video to that. And then, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. Occult Perspectives. My name is Tyler Smith, and mostly what I do on here is esoteric or occult research. We talk about Hermeticism, we talk about Freemasonry, we talk about all things tied to ceremonial magic, Golden Dawn, things of that nature, the Tree of Life, the Tree of Death, astrology, all of these things. So in today's video, specifically, I wanted to get into the symbol of the Anchor and Ark in Freemasonry, which is talked about really briefly in the Master Mason degree. It's just like a short little paragraph or snippet. But yeah, anyway, the Anchor and Ark are kind of what they represent. Kind of one of my favorite symbols. It may be my favorite symbol. Its symbolic meaning of all the Masonic symbols. It's a really beautiful concept and idea, and let's talk about that. Let's get into that a little bit. So the anchor, if we take the anchor by itself, what an anchor does is it holds you in place. It holds the ship in place. And it's about grounding as well. It grounds you. And so, as kids, of course, we're always taught that being grounded is like a negative or a bad thing. But in reality, as we grow older, and especially with people who do spiritual practices of any kind, it is good to stay grounded while you are traversing the higher realms of consciousness. It's important to keep your physical body grounded and healthy and work on things like your root chakra, staying grounded while you're ascending your consciousness. Literally working with the roots of the tree before ascending the tree. And we see this theme in working with the Qliphoth and things like that. To fully traverse the Qliphothic realm and take that as a whole initiatory journey is one thing. We all experience aspects of the Qliphoth at different points in our life. And from those experiences and working through the shadow, that's where the true beauty and the true growth lies. So it's important to understand the roots, getting back to that grounding, that centering, especially kind of in kind of the woke, I'll call it the woke community, where it's all just, I see a lot of the same information being repeated, and it's not really getting down to the core emotional roots. It's often just almost more like a salesman type mentality, and always be positive, and no matter what, there's no room for negativity. But as we all know, there's importance in positive and negative energies. Anyway, I'm getting off track a little bit with the theme of this video. So the anchor, which anchors the ship, it pulls it into the peaceful harbor. Now, this whole idea of this place of peace, this tranquil realm, that this divine ship or ark, much like Noah's Ark, and the ark And the animals that reside on the ark are emblematic of the zodiac. And then the ark itself is a receptacle or a carrier of the knowledge, of the teaching. So the ark, in one way, symbolizes the secret teachings. As Manly P. Hall would put it, the secret teachings of all ages. The esoteric teachings, which work their way down through, word of mouth, through initiation, or just those who study, and want to further their understanding of self and consciousness. The ark kind of symbolizes the carrying on of those concepts as well. And as I said before, the anchoring of the ship into a peaceful harbor, a place of peace. The sea, the rough seas, being emblematical of all the troubles and all of the things that most people in modern reality are worried about. We see the sea of chaos. It's like a hunger that can never be satisfied. It's always moving on to the next thing, and then not really grounding ourselves and like cleaning up our mess here on the material realm. We're all meant to have experiences. We're all meant to go and do things, but at the same time, we have to keep our energy grounded and not scatter ourselves too thin, not get caught up so much in the hunger of this world that we lose connection with our higher selves. So we kind of want to walk on the water, and as we look at this from a symbolical significance, water is the emotions. So really, Jesus was conquering his emotions. I've seen temples where there's a depiction. I think they're definitely Asian temples. They're over in Asia. But depictions of where there's kind of like this sea of bodies and all this turmoil going on beneath. But then there's a bridge that is like the straight and narrow path. On the Tree of Life, we know this as the royal path on the Kabbalistic tree. It's the one that goes straight up the middle pillar. And the initiate or the adept is not being distracted by the worries of the world, all the distractions. He or she is staying on the true path, the narrow path, the middle path, and staying true to themselves and their highest self. And crossing this sea, this tumultuous sea, in this divine ship, staying true to our higher selves is kind of the symbolism of, going over the troubled seas that is talked about in the symbolism of the anchor and the ark. So these are kind of some deeper, viewpoints on it, so to speak. It is, in essence, kind of symbolic of the initiatory path itself. Another aspect of, and you could think of, typically we think of ships as being, on the sea, but we could also take this into a more cosmic consideration, and maybe it's not just limited to sea vessels. It could also represent, like a cosmic ship, a spaceship of some kind. And, then you start getting into things like the Anunnaki and all of that, and how there's a flood and ark myth very similar to the Christian Bible. So there's all these interesting flood story analogies, which you could take into consideration. That might be something to go and study further, because there's definitely information out there about that. But this place of peace, and really this place of peace that you cross over this sea of troubles in this ship, this divine ship, and then you get anchored into the place of peace where your soul can be at rest, where you've labored in the, in Masonry we refer to it as the quarries of life, working in the fields, the laboring fields of the temple, where they're working on the different parts of the temple, and the quarries of life. There's different little symbolic phrases that can represent the difficulties of life and the labors of life, the things that it takes for society to move on and evolve, and the things that it just takes as the foundational basis of life, the things that it takes to uphold that, food, shelter, water, all of these things. So the labors of life. This place of peace, it's a place of higher consciousness. It's a place where you can really go to at any time And the world may get caught up in all of these things, but we can live a grounded life, and that's what the anchor represents as well. Sometimes we have to know when to take a break, when to, kind of go back into that place of peace, that tranquil grounding that the anchor in the divine ship can offer. And I think one of the best ways to portray this symbolism is in the Lord of the Rings, as I've said before in one of the prior videos, at least one of the prior videos. The elves, most of them end up retiring west. They go across the Great Sea, and I can't remember what the name of, it's the Grey Havens, but there's another name for that land as well. And it's basically the place where they live in higher consciousness. There's no death. There's no, mortality, really. It's the land of immortality. It's almost like, in a way, they've gone into a place where their souls are more ascended. They're in a higher vibratory state. And we hear about places like this, even on Earth. There's the inner Earth idea of, Agartha, where it's the tall, Nordic, almost more elven-like beings, that reside there in a higher frequency. So we see these themes portrayed in, movies and books and video games and things like this. And that's why it's so key to study sometimes the symbolism of things like Lord of the Rings. It'll give you a deeper insight into the, real occult knowledge that you already know. But a lot of these authors, they knew about this kind of stuff, and they definitely incorporated it into their writings. So the West, sailing into the West, into the Grey Havens, the place of peace, the place of immortality, escaping the troubles of the mortal world, the world of men. So, and then, of course, if you haven't watched The Lord of the Rings, spoiler alert, but Frodo in the end goes off with the elves and Gandalf to this place of peace in the West. And traditionally, in most mystery school traditions, the West is associated with water. But I've switched it up, and Universal Mastery, if you have not checked out his YouTube video, he says that on the astral level of reality, the elements are already set. So the West actually equates to air. And that is why if I'm invoking, I will actually face the West, because that's the realm of addition. So if we think of the elves moving into the West, the realm of immortality, now the East is where Mordor lies, the place of darkness. But this is also the area of initiation. You go into the darkness, you go into the Klopothic realms, you go into Mordor, you go into the trial. That's the whole theme of the Lord of the Rings. They go to destroy the ring, which is Saturn, Chronos, time, that which is binding. It binds all the other rings, and he's the Dark Lord. Even Melkor, or what's the other name for him? Melkor is a more ancient name for him. Morgoth, he's like the Lord of Sauron even. And there seems to be a lot of associations between Morgoth and before he became like a fallen being or whatever, to Lucifer. There's a lot of similarities I see, because he was like this really beautiful elven being. I think maybe even same with Sauron, but I don't really know the lore too well. But there's a lot of parallels anyway in there. And so yeah, anyway, getting off track. Mordor, the land of initiation, the place of darkness, the Klopothic realms, and then this retiring into the West. So it really takes, you have to go through life experiences, you have to go through pain, you have to go through transformation in order to really enjoy the retiring of moving into the West, of finding that place of peace, that tranquil place that is harmony and bliss after you've done the great work. And there's different levels of the great work. Of course, there's always going to be another level. There's always going to be more to do. But we also have to take periods of rest. And, the Spirit, there's a time and place for everything. There's a time and place for labor. There's a time and place for learning. There's a time and place for rest, And if your body tells you that you need rest, learning to heal yourself and just sitting with the energy and sitting with yourself and sitting with your emotions, and just being grounded in that and finding a place of peace, this Anchor and Ark whole idea of, a place where you can truly grow from the soil and the roots and blossom into the beautiful flower that represents this place of peace. much like the Great Havens, the immortal realms, heaven, if you will, that state of heaven and bliss that you can enter, when you're doing your meditations. I know you all know what that feeling feels like. A place that is so energetically aligned that every movement, the elves are I see the elves in Lord of the Rings as very high class. They're very attuned to energy, and they're very empathic. Like Legolas, he always picks up on, differences and changes in the atmosphere, and he listens to nature. Aragorn has this power as well, but the elves, Legolas being, I'm pretty sure he's a full-blood elf, he has even more of a connection to that power. So they're almost like a higher level of being that's more between man and angel. And they even talk about angel-like beings in the Lord of the Rings lore. So look into some Lord of the Rings lore if you haven't already. And there's definitely some very interesting occult parallels to be learned about. And it's a good teacher in things, like we're talking about with the Anchor and the Ark, and the working of the darkness, and then being able to retire once you know that you've done your duty, your role, in this lifetime. You've lived your life's higher purpose. And, even if you weren't able to your fullest potential, this journey goes ever onward. And, not to take this life for granted. There's so much beautiful opportunities and things to be appreciated. Things to be appreciated of in this lifetime. And that's what this grounded hope, this grounded idea of being in a place that brings complete peace and freedom from the troubles of the world. But you have to work through the shadow aspects to be able to get there and appreciate it fully. And I think this has a lot of analogy in, I think of people who, they might have a lot of money, they might have a lot of material wealth, and they keep trying to buy their happiness with things, material goods. And for a lot of them, it seems like no matter how much they chase, no matter, even with musicians and things like that, it's no matter how many albums they produce, no matter how much works of art they bring about, it's like there's this endless hunger that never stops. And it's good to have that desire. Desire is healthy. Desire is what keeps us going. It's what keeps us thriving. But if you can't find any peace of mind through that, if you're groping for more and more things, and you feel like you need to finish project after project after project without any ability to sit back and appreciate the positive manifestation that your work has brought about, and really be able to enjoy that peace and not have to have a lot of things. You just find a blessed space, that you can sit there with your energy being in a peaceful place. And especially if you can surround yourself with people who don't have a discordant energy, they're very aware of what it takes to have a positive, peaceful environment, and it doesn't always have to be all high vibes. And, feel free to talk about, serious issues, it's all about healing. This is all a process of healing. We don't want to create this false idea of positivity. If we work on the negative aspects, and then we can also truly learn to appreciate, and I think greater appreciation comes when one has worked through more darkness, then it's really time to quote unquote retire to the West, and sail that ship, and go. And sometimes this is representative of you've done the great work, you've gone into the East, the land of darkness. There's also great analogy in the lodge of Freemasonry. The worshipful master, he presides in the East, and he goes in the East to serve a duty. He serves as the presiding officer of the lodge. Sorry, I can't talk. And he's the president of the organization to that individual lodge. And that is that's a duty that he takes upon himself. But when he's in the throne in the East, or chair, we'll just call it chair, and he's facing east, he's looking towards the west. So he's going to move towards the west, towards the place of, after the great work is done, symbolically moving towards the west. Now, there is no end to this work, as I've said before, but I think that place represents more where our souls will go to, once we've worked more towards the great work, and we'll have physical manifestations of those rest experiences, even just a journey to the beach, or something with you and your significant other, or like your family. Those phases, those periods of rest in your life are manifestations of that same theme, that Anchor and Ark, the divine ship, that idea of peace. And then you also have the rainbow that's associated with the Ark too, which has correspondences with many things, like Archangel Raziel. So I think I pretty much summed up, what this symbol is about, using a lot of different words. So hopefully the message has come across. Just to add a little bit more, I guess I'll say magical correspondences or esoteric correspondences within the lodge. If we look at the elements a little bit differently, the Worshipful Master is usually considered wisdom. The pillar of wisdom is what he represents. He's in the east. The Senior Warden would represent the pillar of strength, being in the west, and then the Junior Warden represents the pillar of beauty, being in the south. Now, if we change the elements up to what they are set in on the astral level, not the traditional magical correspondences, the new elemental correspondences that I have set to the elements, the directions, so east being fire instead of air, that would make the angelic presence of Michael be in the east instead of in the west, instead of in the south, because south is normally associated with fire. Now, if we look at this theme from the beauty, strength, and wisdom, Michael would really represent strength, I would think. So if we switch the Worshipful Master to being wisdom to being strength, switch him and the Senior Warden, so the Worshipful Master is strength, which is represented by fire and Archangel Michael in the east. Air is the element of the intellect, so that would be wisdom, and move that to the west instead, and that being Archangel Raphael, the angel of the air. And then in the south, if that's the water, which is beauty, that would represent, beauty is a good word to represent Gabriel, or Gabriel, however you want to pronounce it, because of that more feminine energy. Raphael and Michael are definitely, I see them as more masculine energies, whereas Gabriel is definitely more feminine. It's the angel of water. So those are just some interesting correspondences to think about if you're into compass directions and element directions and the different correspondences between those and the archangels. And then another interesting correspondence I wanted to get into would be, if we see the Worshipful Master, he's the senior officer of the lodge. It goes Worshipful Master, Senior Warden, and Junior Warden. He would be Archangel Michael, which is the second oldest archangel after Lucifer. And then Raphael is the next oldest after Michael. And Raphael would be, analogous to the Senior Warden. And then the Junior Warden being analogous to Gabriel is the third oldest archangel. So I've read and seen in different videos on the lore of those archangels. So I just thought that was another neat little insight. Now, the traditional view of the archangels, the archangels and their element correspondences would be in the east. You have Archangel Raphael and air and the Worshipful Master in the east. In the west, of course, water, Gabriel, and then the Senior Warden is always associated with the west, no matter what. And then the south was the element of fire, which fire makes sense in the south. I can see that from the perspective of the sun. But remember, we're talking about the elements on the astral level now, because the sun is high noon, and that's when the sun is at its highest, so that makes sense for the element of fire. But I have changed the south to being water now. And I could see where people would get the idea of the West being water, because the West does have a lot of symbolism with the element of water, as we were talking about sailing into the West with this whole video of the Anchor and the Ark, and the ocean being analogous to traveling over to the Great Havens. But the West is also associated with baptism, which is associated with the element of water as well. So anyway, I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to in this video. It actually went a little bit longer than I thought it would. Maybe it's because I just haven't had much of a moment to do one of these videos in a while, so I wanted to just ramble and get some of this information out. I feel like there were some other things I wanted to say, like maybe a couple things I wanted to add on about the whole theme of the Anchor and Ark, but really just overall, like learning to basically, it's really important. Even earlier today was just sitting there and saying, with real genuine, appreciation, I love myself. I am learning to I am learning to love myself for who I am, appreciate myself. And sometimes we just have to, instead of taking everything so seriously and thinking, this has to work that way, or this has to work this way or that way, just kind of leaning into things a little bit more and just learning to go with the flow and not being so over logical about everything, which, I can kind of tend to get in that trap of like overthinking sometimes. So it's nice to have those places, and those, not only in your mental space, but physical places, where you can get away to. And then also learning to bring that peace and harmony with you wherever you go. You can manifest that, really, if you know how to do breath work, if you know how to do energy work, you can bring that peace of mind with you anywhere and bring that divine bliss, with you wherever you are. And just enjoy life, guys. So, it's as I've gotten older too, it's, don't take life for granted. I've seen a lot of people now at this point, it's, some people have already moved on to the next phase of life, and a lot of people do have a fear of death, and I don't think it's something that we should really like fear per se. It just gives us a lot more, if we can really sit there and appreciate the present moment, it gives us a lot more appreciation and understanding of the value of what we have right in front of us. And Gandalf even, I really like in the Lord of the Rings, the point where Gandalf says like a little phrase to Pippin. Pippin's like, "Are we gonna die, Gandalf? Is this the end?" And then Gandalf says, "The end? No, it's only the beginning. Death is just a natural part of life, a path we all must take." And then he talks about this, the gray, the silver lining moving away, and then the green country in the distant horizon, the golden sea, and that's the retiring of the soul back over the sea, once it's done the great sojourn here in the physical realm. We're doing the great work, we're spreading this knowledge, working on ourselves, working on helping every man and woman to become, a sovereign of their own kingdom, really. That's what's really going to bring about heaven on earth, is when the consciousness is raised. Because remember, the society is always going to be a reflection of the consciousness of the people. So the society that you see, which is really more of like a Klopothic kind of manifestation right now, it's showing you all the unworked, trauma that has built up within people creating these shells, and then it's manifested in this external world. So if we really want to experience bliss, much like the Garden of Eden and things of that nature, we really have to, just be in that frequency and help others learn and grow as well at the level that they're comfortable with. Just learn to be really content but also, pushing the envelope at the same time, for evolutionary growth. And if the more we learn to work with the spirit, this divine source, that's the source of all, and this source exists within you, we can make that alchemical change. We are doing the great work in that way by spreading this light, knowledge, and illumination. Really being light bearers, So I think that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I thank all of you for watching these videos, for being a part of this channel. It means a lot. It really does. So if you're not currently subscribed, if you like this video, please subscribe. Please like. Feel free to comment if you want to get involved in some, if you just want to be a part of some conversation, talk about some ideas. So I promote the idea of discussion and spiritual community. So with that being said, everyone, regardless of whether it's day or night, wherever you are, peace and blessings, my friend. And until next time, love you all. Take care.